Hi, everyone. Best BR Sports Picks. My name is Peter Loshak. His name is Mike Brenner. And today we're just going to give you some basic thoughts for beginners only on betting NFL and college football. Mike Brenner, do you have any thoughts on betting NFL and college football?
Well, there's quite a bit of them. Early starters, and that means for teams starting early in the season or teams that start early in a game, that offers you an advantage of doing first halves, quarters, things of that nature. And again, for the novice, these are things that, because when I first got into it, I didn't know you could do a first half. Hell, I
Yes,
didn't know you could do
you
a
don't
quarter.
have to bet on who's going to win or the point spread or the total. Some of the best value can be found with derivatives, which would be like first half bets, first half spreads and totals, second half bets, team totals, all those kinds of things, and of course betting props on individual players. So it's not just about betting the spread or who's going to win the game or the total, right, Mike Brenner?
Exactly. And Pete, this is also, I've been in the industry a little bit, nowhere near as long as you, but I'm aware of second half bets, but this is the first year in football I'm going to actually start to play some second half bets. I've learned a little how you do it in other sports, and I see some advantages there. So I'm looking to take those tips I've learned from another sport and to go ahead and impart them on betting in NFL and college football as well on second half. But bankroll management is key to any sport, no matter what. But when you get ready, make sure you are prepared before the season starts. I think another important note to the beginner, you're going to be getting hammered maybe by handicappers. Don't listen to 5 or 10 handicappers early on in the season, because if you do, your gambling instincts will take over. In week 3, you're going to be looking up going, where the hell did my bankroll go? Am I talking?
Sure, absolutely. You have to do bankroll management and, of course, prepare with your research at the beginning of the year. Or you can just forget about your research at the beginning of the year and just sort of try to ride the wave in week 2 or week 3 of NFL and college football and just sort of, start off and see how the first 2 games go and then start with your research from there. A lot of people do that, Mike Brenner. They sort of don't even bet on the first 2 weeks, first couple weeks of the season, and then sort of see how things shake out and then start in with week 3.
Are you one of those?
No, I'm not. But at times, if I don't have enough time to prepare for something, I certainly will.
That's a smart move.
Yes, that's one thing I would definitely recommend is make sure you never bet unless you're absolutely sure that you're prepared. Right
now, football is a little different for me in that aspect compared to basketball and baseball. Basketball, baseball, I tend to lay off for the beginning of the season, but football, I feel well enough prepared to where I can kind of find some early spots and hit it. Now, they could just do this, Pete. They could just throw all of this out and just follow us with our picks each and every week. And I got a feeling we'll take them to the promised land, because I know baseball's not my strength, but we produce in every sport. And I'm just kidding with that's all you need to do. But hey, check out some of the some of the angles and edges that we have as well.
Yeah,
because like you said, you can use handicappers handicappers use handicappers. Handicappers also find out different edges in different ways. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I know one thing. I make money in football each and every year.
Yeah, and that's another thing for sure. You don't have to do your own research. If you just want to do it from a recreational perspective, find a handicapper that you trust and that you believe is going to be profitable long term, and just take his picks, take his advice, and then saves you all the work, and you still can have action on the game from a recreational perspective.
Yeah, I had a question for you that I think the novice would appreciate. Do you ever find yourself falling into a pattern of fading or backing certain teams and just kind of staying with that?
Absolutely. That's one of the best ways to make money in sports betting because the books cannot necessarily adjust as quickly as they would need to as an individual player can. And just looking at last year in college football, perfect example of that was the Washington State Cougars, right?
Yes.
Washington State was covered all their games, all their first 10 or 11 or 12 games, and the books just couldn't adjust. Yes. And even you see that in the NFL a few years ago when the Patriots were just too good for even the markets to be able to make the lines high enough. There was just money, betting on the Pats as a big favorite game in and game out. And if you caught that train early, eventually the books do catch up, and then the season changes. And at the end of the year, the Pats became a bad bet at the last quarter of the season. But absolutely, that's one of the best pieces of advice I could give is when you find a team that is sort of like systematically undervalued or overvalued, ride that until it's not the case anymore.
Very well said. Another thing, Pistol Pete, real quick, live betting is becoming more and more popular. Any thoughts to the beginner? Would it maybe be smart to stay away from live betting and kind of get a pattern and know what you're doing first?
Yeah, I mean, live betting is a little bit intense because the lines are only up for a short period of time, and you have to act fast And yeah, I would definitely say that live betting can be very fun, but if
Mhm.
you're going to jump into it as a beginner, jump in with just a very, very small bankroll and expect to lose. But it's definitely a lot of fun. Even I don't do live betting because it's just too intense. I have too much other stuff. But some people specialize in it. And if you want to specialize in just live betting, you can get an edge that way if you figure out what you're doing.
Okay, and another thing for the novice or the beginner, because as Pete said, for beginners only, when you do second halves in football, be prepared. You got a really short window. You got like a 10 to 12, maybe 15 minutes at the most window to place that bet, because that's when the line comes out. So make sure you're sharp, on top of your game, cash them tickets.
Okay, and the final piece of advice, of course, when you're deciding on a sports book to pick, go to sportsbookreview.com, where you can find reviews of every book that exists, and the big ones, the small ones, all the books in the middle, essential to know where you're playing, and that can all be found at sportsbookreview.com.
And Pistol Pete, that is the most important piece of advice we've given so far.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.